Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up. So, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, innovation. And this week, it's our kind of last week before summer holidays, so it's the end of term show. So we do have the news. We've got, well, we're defaulting to a traditional media channel, so we've got news, weather, and sport. That's our main things. So there we go. Right, so let's crack on. Oh, that's not the right jingle. I'll drop that in later. Where's my... Oh, there it is. That was the word on the street.
We haven't done that. We'll do that when we come back. The word on the street.
We'll do that. Word on the street when we come back. It's too good a jingle not to use. Right. So I've got some news. Kick things off, Ben. And this is, if I find it, yes, I do. So this is Travelers Insurers not paying out on a cyber policy. And this is a jeweler that paid a 7.5 million ransom payment in Bitcoin. Hence the reason it's on bitcoinnews.com. So this is a story refusing to pay the ransom that the jewelers paid, and is to prevent sensitive information. So this is a high-end jewelers that deal with the royal family, Saudi royal family, things like that. So they leaked some of the data, I think, to prove it, and then apologized to the royal family of the Saudis, but then said, oh, if you don't give us the money, we're going to release more of it. The original ransom was 15 million. They negotiated it down to 7.5, and then the company has taken a line that they're not going to pay it. It doesn't actually say in this article what the reason is for them not paying it. However, what was interesting, and something that we've talked about in the past, is this quote from the British National Cyber Security Centre, where he's essentially saying that these policies are allowing companies to pay criminals because they know they're going to get the cash back. And basically the whole thing is broken, because at the moment, as it says there, companies have incentives to pay ransoms. And so, and it says at the end there, that at the very least, we need to have a major consultation with the industry to stop these types of payments from going around, because it's just it's just putting fuel on the fire, because the gangsters see that they can get paid. They say, oh well, there's no kind of victim here because the insurers are backing it. So it's just going to get out of control, if it's not already out of control, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think there is something in the US that's going through to try and ban. I think in the US they have banned this activity, but obviously this is a UK.
Well, the argument always was that if you're paying, you've got a flaw in your system, and therefore you fix it, and there's a benevolent aspect to this. But quite honestly, in the end, it isn't that, is it? Not when you're talking about this sort of money. You can fix your system for far less than $7.5 million, I suspect, in a jeweler.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I think it's interesting. I think there was something else about cyber this week, which was saying that how complicated it was, especially for systemic risk as well. So I just think it's a very interesting area. There's not much data around it. It's, a lot of business has been done as well.
Well, it's a huge fear of very large organisations, as we've talked about before. So I deal with procurement people quite regularly, as you do, but that when you ask them what their priority is, it's a cyber hack of their systems in insurance. And not surprisingly, they build their whole procurement process virtually around that now in terms of suppliers. So for me anyway, it's become very onerous, really. But whether that actually what they're doing is stopping that happening, I don't know. I mean, it's just they're paranoid about it, really.
Yeah. So I think that is one to watch over the summer. See what happens in in the autumn. Okay, right. So let's talk about the Lloyd's building. So we've been talking about ever since lockdown, haven't we? The future of the underwriting room and the building itself. And we had Savills on talking about the break clause in the. So, yeah, we've been watching this for a while. But, yeah, this week, I think, wasn't it? They announced they're going to stay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this, given that if anybody does follow this show, they'll know that we have been pretty much saying this for a long time. We're ahead of the curve on this sort of thing always, but this one definitely. I mean, this is no surprise that they're going to stay, because it seems like from all that's being said, they had no real choice, because the lease agreement and the negotiations have been sort of, depending on which way you look at it, messed up or just left too long, and now they're going to have to stay. So what they've done is plumped for 2031, which feels a long way off to me, even though it probably isn't. But in terms of this market and how it's changing, that's a long way off. So quite a few people I noticed when they saw this were saying on LinkedIn, not that this is a scientific survey, saying, oh, that's such good news, that's really great, really pleased. Whereas actually I thought, well, is it really? It seems to me that this is now becoming a bit of a white elephant. It's pretty much empty for most of the time. I had discussions last week with some head of underwriting who said there's not many people in there. Most of the action is taking place either on the computers or in the offices of the major insurers in the market ecosystem, as they call it. So I don't really get where this is going. And then the end of this article says short term they're going to do a few things to freshen it up, new sofas and things like that. Well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, is that all that's happening? But longer term they're going to consider the options. Well, I honestly think they need to consider the options now, because all sorts of reasons. The market's going more digital. It will go more digital. Every single thing, it seems to me, is going to push against having this face-to-face trading market. Hybrid working, you name it, everything's against it. And guess what? It's pretty much empty. And I've said this before, we were doing research years ago on this, and it was ebbing away years ago, before the pandemic. So it's another of these things that have been accelerated. So I haven't seen evidentially there's a future for this, or nobody's made a case that I can see that this is an interesting thing to do, this building. I think part of the problem with transferring it into something that's a more central social environment for the insurance community, which I think is a good idea, and that's what Savills talked about, is probably the green credentials of this building, and also the fact that whether it's commercially viable, because so many parts of it are dark and dingy, and I can't see what you do with them. So, but yeah. I'm not a developer, so there might be some wonderful plan. I think it's becoming a white elephant, though, and everybody says, "Oh, it's an amazing, iconic building." It is, but it's also very difficult to see what you do with something so kind of awkward, really, I suppose is the word I'd use. It's not very utility. It's you get rid of it and you're left with a big space and a hole in the middle of all of the market, and you leave it there and you say, well, is that what represents the market? And it's not modern. So you've got a brand problem potentially, I think, as well.
Yeah. It is interesting, isn't it? There's different ways that you can look at this. I think the other interesting thing to think about is, I'm heavily involved in the technology and operations side of this, and speak to Bob at Lloyd's, who's heading up the transformation team there around Blueprint 2, and certainly they are talking about a much more digitally enabled marketplace. So to your point, meetings will still take place, but then the transaction should run digitally. Now, the meetings, they might take place face to face, they might take place over Zoom, they might whatever, But like you said at the beginning, having a specific room where you kind of queue up and meet people, or people, that whole way of doing business, and the financials around it don't stack up in a kind of the modern way of working, and what people will want. And if you just one other point is around kind of the talent coming in, and at your award ceremony, when Caroline Wagstaff was speaking about bringing in new talent and what they will need in order to operate, going into that sort of building when they've been into all the other buildings around there that are super cool. I mean, the cheese grater, that lounge at the top of there is breathtaking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievably cool. I mean, it's so impressive.
But you make a really good point, because I think it had heritage, and maybe it has heritage, but when it had heritage, which was a few years ago, you could bring young people into the market, and it was quite thrilling and interesting, exciting to go into something that had so much history and so much heritage, because immediately, you get that pickup, don't you? And you say, well, I'm into something that's not just a flash in the pan. It's been here for 300 years, and this is a representation of that. Now, the problem, I think, is that because it's not clear at all what's going to happen to this building, we're going to have a period of time at least where this is nothing. It's neutral. It doesn't do anything. So what's the point of it? Because I completely agree with you that when people came into the market and said, got the Lloyd's pass and went into the building, that was key, and it was a moment of, staff I've had who've been in there go, it's an amazing place, and it brings things to life for you as to what the market is about in a funny way. But if it's not clear as to what its purpose or point is, then it really becomes a pointless white elephant, as I've said probably 3 times now. But it just sort of frustrates me that there's yet another thing that we've not got a real serious plan for. If they said we're staying and we're going to do this, great, brilliant, but make a decision. And the other thing is that point about Lloyd's passes is lots of people I speak to now, including me, don't have Lloyd's passes anymore because security, nobody gives them out, and nobody's bothered to go into the Lloyd's building. The main point of having a Lloyd's pass, one of the main points, was you could go and pop into the Lloyd's building, have a coffee, meet a couple of people, and that's it. You don't do that anymore because people don't have Lloyd's passes.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's not. It's a shame, really, because I think it's going to be emptier and emptier, and it's like the Marie Celeste.
Yeah, they'll ring the bell and shut the doors. That's it. I can ring the bell.
Yay!
There we are.
Time,
Right.
please, gentlemen.
That's it. Right. So as always, we'll keep our eye on this, and we will comment. Right, and I saw this, Ben, and I'm not sure what to make of it. So BMW introduces new heated seat subscription in the UK. So my understanding of this story is that BMW will build their cars to all the highest spec. However, and when you buy a car, you will choose the options that you want as you do now. However, when you come to sell it on, you can then have things like heated seats or heated steering wheels, but you have to pay a monthly subscription in order for the software to switch on inside the car and allow you to do it. And I've got a bit of a screen grab about what that looks like in the app. So you can see there, £15 a month for, I guess it's a month, that's a lot of money, isn't it? For front heated seats. I mean, you're not going to need them. If global warming carries on, you're going to need cooling seats, aren't you? But so I think, firstly, I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like being kind of conned here in a way. My other point was, why isn't an insurance proposition one of these apps? And you could have, that could say comprehensive. I'm driving to Europe. It could, I don't know, whatever. You could have little add-ons that you want to cover. I'm driving to Europe next week, and I've had to go through the whole thing of ringing up the company and blah blah blah, adding it on. Is it included? Is it not? Have I got breakdown cover and all that kind of stuff? And you kind of could just go switch it on, and when I come back, switch it off again. And I think it's really interesting what's happening in that kind of side of things, because I don't think insurance is going to drive the agenda on this one. It's going to be customers like us that enjoy using apps like these. We've both got the BMW driving app. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's not that sophisticated for my car because it's a bit older, but I'm sure yours is very good. And I just think that BMW might just step in and go, I'll tell you what, why don't we just insure these things? We virtually do any warranties.
Yeah, I mean, look, in between us talking about this in our extensive research before the show, and now I've just realised this is it's a brilliant idea from BMW. This it's absolutely brilliant, because every time I've bought a BMW or any car, quite frankly, I've forgotten what it's got on it and all the bells and whistles, and then I find the one thing I thought I fancied having, it hasn't got it. So I would pay for it, and if it wasn't any good, then I'd ditch it. So rental of this sort of thing is great. Also, it's a really great data provider for BMW, because stuff that the people don't want, they'll know very quickly. They don't use it, don't pay for it, don't rent it. And I've worked out the other thing is that the trouble with a lot of cars is that you pay up front. The first driver who buys this car new pays for all these things outright, and then everybody else potentially benefits from them. But I've always thought, and I've said to other people, I've discussed with other people, that they're all available because it's just software. Turn it on and off. It's like buying a package. So I think this is a great idea. And I wouldn't mind, I don't know if I want to pay 35 quid for driver assist, that doesn't matter. But I might pay 20 quid for heated seats. And I don't have to pay for it all year, obviously. I'm not paying for it next week.
Yeah.
I want the fridge version next week. But I would... I would pay for it on a per use basis, and you can see where that goes. And I'd say, well, in the winter, I want X and Y, and yeah, it's great. So you've got this, but also this. So this is like hi-fi. Okay, so I will just do an analogy, which is speakers I've had for a little while now. But they basically, you can change the sound of the speaker by just downloading some software, and now that means that I haven't bought one set of speakers. I've bought something that can change every day. So this is the same, change its sound every day. Which means for me, it's value for money, because they can just keep bringing out different versions of this, setup inside the speaker. And so I'll always keep value. So that's value for money for me. That's the same with these cars. They could say, well, look, you can always get extra things, and that's the way things are going. So I think it's a great idea, actually. You could just, I would pay, because when you pay for a car, it's a lot of money, right? So you don't think, oh, if I pay 100 quid rental on top then for things, maybe you do think it's a lot of money, but I don't know, maybe factor in. We'll see.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. That whole car market is, I was in the dealer and I was looking around, and there was like a set of alloy wheels, and the option that it was like $5,000 extra for these wheels. Yeah. I was going, crikey, that's why I don't buy a new car.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really interesting. I think it's going to be interesting for insurance, and generally for the car industry. Anyway, it's a fascinating time. And when that driverless technology comes through, which it will do, that again puts another evolution into it. It's like TVs. You go into Currys and you think, well, how can they have improved the televisions? And you go in there and you just go, oh my God, they're completely different to my television. They look different. They sound different. They're curved. They're almost, it's incredible. The rate of this technology. So, great. Good. Right. Let's move things on. So, weather. So, just in case you didn't know, it's going to be hot, man. Real hot. Yeah. 35 on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
So,
insurance issue. But obviously what's going to happen is just at the end of that screen, before you and I go on holiday, it will turn to 17 and showers for August. Yes. Wherever we are, it will be 17 and showers.
Yeah, that's it. Brittany weather. But yeah, there's it's interesting, isn't it? There's quite a lot of stories around what this means for workers and commuting and traveling and all this kind of thing. And I think the trend is, this will become the norm or thereabouts for for our country.
Well,
so it's going to be about adapting, isn't it?
I think I suppose the difference a bit this time is it's the first time I think I can really remember where we've had prolonged periods. Normally the pattern that I've got used to, as I see it, is it's one hot day and then it rains for a week. And that's how that works. But this seems like a bit different. Who knows? I mean, it's
Burgess
always
and
perception
Bolton's
is
weekly wrap up.
Not the reality always, but it's it's quite a lot. If this is what we've got, it's a lot to think about. It's our buildings need to change. Everything, working habits need to change. My daughter just works in a hospital and they don't even have air conditioning in the hospital. So I couldn't believe that. She works in the stroke unit, and you think, well, how could you? I said, what do you do? And she said, well, it's terrible because we're all in COVID stuff now as well, COVID care, and there's, patients are dying because of they're in environments where it's not cool. That's quite worrying.
It is. We won't need to keep an eye on that. So that will just happen. So there we go.
Well, it's something that we can't influence on this show.
Yeah, we'll try. Obviously,
we've tried so many things, and none of them have worked so far. I thought Lloyd would relent, but no.
No.
Mind you, they're not known for listening.
Right, so we've done news, we've done weather, let's do sport. So we're absolutely fascinated and engrossed in the cycling, the Tour de France at the moment, aren't we? And it's been absolutely brilliant, and I'm going to continue watching it. Yeah, all the way through to the end.
It is good. It's a great thing. It's a great thing, and it's a very traditional event, but it's modernising as well. So it's another one that's changing in terms of how the race is happening and young people. Yes, all around things are kind of changing a lot, aren't they? So the women's football is on now, which is getting a lot of attention, which is good. So it's good. Yeah, it's very.
It's really interesting, that point actually about that kind of next generation of riders, because they were always, when I was younger, it was always 28, 29, 30. That's when you peaked.
Yeah,
that was when you were able to kind of sustain the rigors of that kind of endurance sport. Whereas now they're so young. I mean, what is Pogacar? What is he? 23, 24, something like that. So you're right. It's all changed.
Well, they don't even take drugs anymore either.
I know. I know. But anyway,
ridiculous.
Right, so that's it. We're all off on holiday, so we know what we're doing this weekend. Thanks for tuning in over the weeks. We will have a couple of special shows where we're going to pick the best of our guests and put together a few snippets. So we'll keep you posted on that one, and we will be.
We're
back
not immune to doing
autumn.
summer repeats, are we? We're not.
No.
We'll stoop low on this show, won't we? We'll have some repeats in the summer.
That's it.
It's not all original content.
Like the BBC in the 70s, constantly repeating stuff.
We'll get people moaning at us. It's all repeats, that Burgess and Bolton. The only thing we should talk about is that we've got 10 claims in October, haven't we? So things will be upcoming pretty quick.
Yeah, they will. So there's a whole rush of events.
And I'll be in Monte Carlo.
Yeah,
so I'll be reporting from Monte Carlo on a super yacht. That is a potential show.
That would be an amazing show. Actually, that's it. We're doing.
Well, you're
that.
not on it.
I'm putting it out there now.
You can fly out. Yeah, we're doing it on the super yacht. Yes.
You be on the super yacht, and I'll be on the mothership.
Yes. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how that all works out. But there is possibilities there. Yeah.
Good. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will have a great summer, and we will see you back in the autumn.
Great. Have a great summer. Great holiday, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.
Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.